from the Defence Minister addressing the armed forces. Indeed, we are looking at the kind of friends who are standing by India in the kind of decision, the precision attacks that have taken place, and India's decision to take this route. And joining us to decode that is the former Indian Ambassador, Manju Seth. It's good to have you with us. Ma'am, Ambassador, tell us, in your opinion, when India is speaking of restraint while still delivering this powerful cross-border strike, how is that read in diplomatic circles? Does this measured kind of posture increase India's credibility, or does it open it to further testing by the adversaries that India has?
No, definitely. I think we have, because our foreign secretary and foreign minister have briefed the different countries, our friends and our supporters. We have briefed them on what happened, and as you're showing on screen, Israel has clearly supported India. Whereas most other countries are asking for, restraint and to find a solution, including China. But the US also indirectly has not, reacted in a negative way. So the fact that India's strikes, surgical strikes, as they are being referred to, were very precise. It was precision targeting, and there was no civilian or military target. It is very clear that terrorist training centers and hideouts were where it is, where they were based on credible intelligence. And I think that is something which everybody does appreciate. But I think given the geopolitical, environment at the moment, people are not, no country would like to take sides. And definitely everybody would ask us to talk and resolve issues. And now, Pakistan has been coming up with these statements that we will retaliate, we will do this, we will do that, and threatening India. And of course, along the LOC and the border, they have increased their firing and all kinds of artillery attacks,
yes,
and causing damage, and casualties. So I think but other countries do understand where India. Where India stands, and what India has done is precise. It is not targeted any military, target or any civilian target.
So, Ambassador, you're saying that India's messaging, when you talk about the diplomatic messaging, is prompt. It is exactly what it needs to be. But yes, for countries to show the kind of support, the level of support, perhaps not being seen as taking sides. That's a crucial element as well. Does that get in the way of India's position on this as well? Because if India has to keep this stance and take this new doctrine of precision strikes as and when terror strikes, because it is deterrence and that is the actual motive behind this. But how much of that deterrence can be achieved and how quickly through precision strikes like this is still in the balance, isn't it?
Absolutely. I agree with you entirely that this is still not very clear, because no one is coming out except perhaps Israel. Nobody has really come out in support of India's actions. And they will not, I think. The major countries will not come out in support, because in a way, India has been always advocating peace and, dialogue to find solutions, and saying war is not a solution. So I think most countries would like to, be on the same, give us a similar kind of, feedback, I should say,
yes,
and say, please resolve everything. And they don't want to take sides, because I also feel, along with all this, as one of their, as the former chief of, the former defense minister, or the current defense minister, had said that yes, and no, Bilawal, the foreign minister, had said that, we have been, supporting terrorists, and we have been doing all this at the behest of the US. On behalf of the US. So he very clearly acknowledged that Pakistan has been involved in terror, in support of terrorism. And I think those elements who have been supporting terrorism and who have been supporting Pakistan in its endeavors to continue, supporting terror will not come out as against Pakistan.
Yes.
But the only plus point is they have not come out, against India either, but just saying that we hope that it will be resolved, and they've given this, diplomatic kind of response. response.
But all countries seem to take a firm stance when it comes to dealing with terror. At least as far as diplomatic circles are concerned, it seems like the right thing to say is that we have to deal with terror firmly. When India does so, and if it is being seen as that, then at least with our allies, Western powers included, and that includes a stronger Quad dynamic, does this incident test our diplomatic resilience, the kind that we have in our global relationships?
Yes, to some extent, it does test our resilience, but the diplomatic, if you go and see our relations with the countries and our sort of stand during the last two wars, or ongoing wars, let me put it, both the Israel-Hamas and the Ukraine-Russia war, because they were trying to put pressure on India to take sides, and we resisted that. I think now it may be a little diplomatically difficult for us. Of course, they've taken our briefings, they have understood our point of view, and they're saying, okay, but don't let it escalate further. But I feel they should be more forthright and clearly tell Pakistan that it has to stop. And I think that's what needs to be done, actually. All these countries who are calling for peace, calling for restraint, etc., really need to put pressure on Pakistan and to stop aiding terror, to encourage terror, training terror, and funding terror. I think they really need to put that pressure. But I think somehow people the world over, if you look at how things are and what has been happening over the last many years, the kind of double speak, I think, on terror has been quite a bit, and that continues till today.
Meanwhile,
spite
Ambassador,
of our best diplomatic efforts, and
yes,
in spite of our best, providing even evidence, to all these governments, but somehow,
yes,
I think their double speak attitude and their double attitude on this, as they say, your terrorist is a good terrorist, my terrorist is a bad terrorist. So that kind of approach continues.
Yes. So providing evidence, providing these dossiers, of course, in the kind of diplomatic circles that you move in, of course, it's going to be met with some amount of skepticism by some, those who are allies, and there is more than just terror that we are dealing with over here. We're talking about how one rubs the back of others and vice versa. But look at China's response, Ambassador. It has been cautious. It expresses regret over India's action, but it opposes terrorism in principle. So is that Beijing playing both sides? Or you see there a shift in tone from that traditional pro-Islamabad stance? Do you see that?
No, I don't think it's a shift. It's only because they know that India is also a neighbor, and especially given the trade balance imbalance, should I say, for us with India, and the huge balance in their favor, they would be cautious, and they would not rush to take sides again. But they have expressed regret over India's military actions, but they have not, condemned, the action or taken any sides, so to speak. So they're also trying to, be diplomatic.
Yes, indeed. Also, Ambassador, the statement that was issued by OIC in New York, it expressed deep concern over the deteriorating security environment in South Asia. Those were the words used by OIC, and they cited India's what they call unfounded allegations against Pakistan as one of the main reasons for rising tensions between the two countries. I don't know if there has been any word after the Operation Sindoor, but do you think India could be engaging more with Muslim majority allies in times to come to be able to get that kind of rapport going?
We are engaging already with all of them, and we have pretty strong relationship with all the Arab nations, with most of them, and I won't say all, with most of the Arab nations. But if you traditionally see the OIC somehow, once in a while occasionally it appears to be with India because it's a big market and good trade, etc., etc. But sometimes it just start a kind of negative narrative against India. So I think that is not going to change very quickly. But given that India is a rising economy, it is a rising emerging economy, and it has established a certain voice in the global community.
Sure.
So that though a lot of people don't want us to be there, and then they're trying to put us in our place, and that's what we've been seeing over the last few, couple of years and few months also. How we are being, in our neighborhood and everywhere, all the powers who are wary of our rise are trying to, I believe, put us in our place.
But
And
when
they
you
don't
look at
leave
that
any
region,
opportunity for that.
when you look at that region in the Gulf, Qatar, for one, I was just looking at the response from the foreign ministry over there. They're calling for sustained dialogue, but they're emphasizing the need to address what they are referring to as unresolved issues. So it seems like a soft veiled reference to Kashmir. But how does this kind of language, how does that affect India's diplomatic posture in the Gulf when you're hearing about the kind of lines being used from a Qatar, for instance?
We are continuing to engage with them, to brief them. But I think beyond that, there's a certain, I don't want to put it that way, but I think there is a certain, they have a certain relationship with Pakistan as well. And they don't want to upset the balance, so to speak. They want to keep a balance between India and Pakistan. And I think we will continue to see this despite any diplomatic efforts, diplomatic outreach that we do. A little bit of this double approach or a dichotomy will continue in their relationship and in their statements as well.
What do you make of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the kind of reactions we've been getting from him? Because at the outset, when he was speaking while he was traveling on a plane, and he spoke about centuries of war between the two countries, that did seem like, I don't know. You tell me. In diplomatic circles, how do you read that? Because he seemed vague. He almost was dismissive. He said in reaction to Operation Sindoor, I hope it ends very quickly. Is that lack of clarity? Is that a cause of concern if it is that? Or do you think it's simply consistent with his approach to South Asia, the kind that we've seen in the past?
Absolutely. We've seen how since he has his second term, he has assumed his second term, he has been erratic. Sometimes he has been unpredictable, or mostly been unpredictable, and mostly been, speaking off the cuff without really looking at the facts. If you say centuries, really, I think that is something which is, Pakistan didn't exist for centuries. So I think that is, he's not really interested. And as you rightly said, South Asia is too far away, and the only reason that they would like, of course, we have a very good strategic partnership with the US, and he thinks it's important. But again, I think it is only because he's got I think he and even America in general have a very transactional approach to things. So they are looking at what is in it for them. I believe, in every interaction, they try and see what is in it for them. Like every country would look out for its own interests, of course. We too look out for our interests in every interaction and every partnership.
Yes.
But, the US particularly has, under Donald Trump, been a little more not consistent, let me say inconsistent in its responses on some issues. But overall, I still think their responses have been quite positive and supportive overall.
So then, would you say that there is would you say, Ambassador, there's some kind of dual messaging from the US? Because the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, he has echoed the word restraint, but he's acknowledging India's right to self-defense too. So how would you interpret it? Because there is a certain kind of diplomatic balancing that needs to happen. And also there could be subtle support that's coming through for New Delhi in the kind of lines like you're suggesting.
Yes, absolutely. There's a dual approach, and I think this is the way America has been conducting its diplomacy. In many situations we will see this, not only vis-a-vis India, but in general, I find that I've been observing that the US does have a bit of a double approach on lots of things, and they say we are monitoring situations like you are saying here, but they're saying it should, they will say the same thing. That it should be both of you should talk to each other, and peaceful solution should be found, peaceful resolution. But of course, they're supporting India's right. That is a plus point. But a right to to safeguard our interest and to do these surgical strikes. So for that, fortunately, they are supporting us. But as I said, it appears that there is this double approach, and it's like a double-edged sword in some ways. Where both they want to give a message to you also, but also keep you, to, not harm you really, but also, keep you on their side.
But these countries, some of them, Ambassador, we seem to have strong defense ties with, not just the US, whom we are in discussions to kind of get a bilateral trade agreement going at this time. So it is an important element to kind of factor in when you look at responses and support to key events affecting us. Look at France, for example, Ambassador, a key defense partner. They have supplied the Rafales that were used in the Operation Sindoor as well. They're speaking of restraint, but acknowledging India's security concerns. So how do you read Paris's understanding of India's position, given their strategic and defense commitments to India?
Again, as I said, all the big powers, the Western countries, they're all, following. I think they may be discussing with each other and coming up with a similar kind of response. They're all a little bit of variations, I think, but mainly because they've been allies, and they're traditionally Europe, and of course that alliance, the transatlantic alliance, is under threat. But generally, they seem to follow a similar kind of, they react similarly on all these issues, and especially South Asia. I find they really do.
Yes.
Don't. I feel sometimes there's a lack of, as you very rightly said, it's too far away. A lack of interest, and lack of sometimes knowledge is not an issue. I think they have full knowledge. It's not that.
Right.
But they have
the balancing act. They seem to be wanting to do the balancing act, but not so much Russia, which is referencing the Simla Agreement and the Lahore Declaration. These are documents that emphasize bilateral resolution to the kind of problems that exist between India and Pakistan. So would you say that this is Moscow leaning towards traditional neutrality, or is that subtly nudging India to take to the diplomatic table? What do you think Russia is indicating?
Russia has, as you're aware, has we had an excellent relationship with Russia, and we have been very, very close over the years, a very special partnership. But I think, with the Ukraine war and the isolation that was, it was subjected to, and the fact that China, which it was traditionally, it was like an adversary for Russia, they both came together, and I think we can see. And we went to our partnership with the US became stronger. So I think Russia also felt that maybe we should look out for ourselves, and that's why they've partnered, or they've come closer to China. And now, naturally, whatever reactions or whatever their approach to India will be, I think, to some extent influenced by its partnership with China, I believe.
Well, we'll have to wait for that. But meanwhile, do you think India should push for Pakistan getting blacklisted at the Financial Action Task Force? Is that achievable? Is that something that India should be pushing for now?
Yes, we will be pushing for it, and we can push for it. But again, as I told you, it's if you look at the FATF, it is really dominated by, again, the West really, and all the powerful countries. Including China.
Yes.
So I think whether we are able to push. I mean, we are going to push for it, but whether we're going to achieve our aim, I think remains a bit in doubt. Given that India, I think because this is, by the way, but I'm mentioning when we were trying for our membership into the FATF, they gave China membership almost overnight.
Yes.
But for India, they had a long process, and when we asked them, you gave China like this without even doing all the due processes that you're doing with us, they said China's different. So that, I mean, not exactly in those terms, but that's what they indicated.
Right.
So I think they do have that approach of how to a different kind of approach, especially where India is concerned and where South Asia is concerned, and generally. With the geopolitical situation and the geopolitical environment in flux, should I say, and the kind of balancing which is taking place across the world, and the tariff wars, and now you can see that US and China are going to be again discussing their agreement, trade agreement, etc. So, and their tariffs, and find a solution. So already we can see it is all in flux. Nothing is predictable completely, and we cannot be sure as to how it'll be in the future. And given that FATF, as I said, is dominated by these countries, and China there too, which it says is my ironclad friend, etc. So it will be a little difficult, but we will, of course, push for it.
Yes.
But whether we achieve it or not, we have to see.
For the moment, at least, Ambassador, Operation Sindoor has marked this calibrated, high-precision shift when it comes to India's response to counter-terror. It has been restrained. It has been resolute at the same time. There is a tactical element, yet it's a telling account of how India is going to act in the future. So the military message has been delivered loud and clear. Now the diplomatic conversation is something that we are tracking, whether deterrence is sustained or is it tested, is largely going to depend not just on what India does next, but how the world is responding as well. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us with your candid views on this. And of course, we'll circle back to you as we go along. But for the moment, we leave it there. Thanks indeed for joining us. Our coverage here on ET Now of Operation Sindoor continues unabated. And of course, we'll keep you updated with all the big developments. For the moment, from me, Vikram Oza, and the entire team, thank you for joining us. Good night.